You can start.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining. Thanks for being with IIU today. My name is Ambassador ONYINYECHI Joy NWOSU. I will be driving you today. First, I would like to talk about this beautiful, this wonderful institution that has given us the platform on which we are to talk today, the International Intensive University. The International Intensive University, IIU, is the world's first intensive-based virtual university. It's building a better and brighter future for all young learners and is committed to provide quality, accessible, affordable, skill-based, and location-dependent education to learners across the world. IIU is providing access to more than 1,000 plus courses and internships to their e-learners across the globe. With a team of high caliber of experienced global educators, IIU has been accredited and affiliated with the World Education and International Accreditation Organization, and collaborated with all world's top universities and educational institutions through the platform of Massive Open Course, MOOC. IIU provides various certificates and diploma courses. There is always that one person who has the vision, the thoughts, idea behind every successful venture and organization. And if we talk about the man behind the success of IIU, it is none other than our beloved co-founder, Mr. Piyush Pandit. He concocted the world's first virtual university during a pandemic, the International Intensive University, IIU. Hi, you're welcome again. Now we know from what platform we are discussing today. Once again, my name is Ambassador ONYINYECHI Joy NWOSU. I am a Nigerian speaking from Nigeria. I am Africa's #1 child development and safety consultant. I am a women and child rights advocate. I am the founder and presently the executive director of the Virtual Development Initiative, VD, VIDI. VD is a gender and child focused organization that has its headquarters in Aba, the southeast part of Nigeria. I hold a BA in English and Literature and hold several other certificates and diplomas in child development, child rights, and human rights areas. I am an informal educator. Teaching child rights to teachers, to parents, and to clearest and consistent voices against child abuse in Africa. I am named by that more than general. I'm an IIU certified mentor, and I'm a recipient of the Most Inspiring Woman of the Earth Award by International Internship University and Swana Bharat Pariva. I'm also a recipient of the Global Edu Award 2021 by the International Internship University. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're joining me, you're welcome to today's discussion. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be your driver on this because it's going to be a very wonderful journey. Believe me, you will enjoy it. And the topic is parenting lessons from the farmer. What a discussion, what a topic. Yeah, what else do you expect from a girl who grew up behind her grandmother's house in the rural community and learned everything she knows today from that setting? Parenting lessons from the farmer. Why do we have to talk about parenting on an educational platform? By the way, I hope we have, let me see. Okay. We talk about parenting on educational platform for two major reasons. First, parents are a child's primary teacher. A parent is the first individual knows, and will remain the last teacher. A parent is the person who teaches the child the values, the morals, everything that he or she has to grow with. So when the parent does not get it right, whatever the educator is going to do in the school, or as we have it today, not necessarily in a school setting, where it's educational setting, but not in the classroom, because we don't talk about school again as a classroom setting. If the parents don't get it right, then the educator is going to have some difficulty in dealing with the child. So today, we are looking at parenting lessons from the farmer as it affects parents and also as it's going to benefit the educator. The next reason is because the educator is the second parent to a child. He or she is the secondary parent. Outside the home front, the educator is the next person who takes up a child. And it is important that this educator understands certain principles that will help him or her interact and communicate effectively with a child. So today I'm going to state for us just few safe principles I learned from behind my grandmother's farm, behind her house as we work, as it affects children. I was young, but as I grew older and began my journey into child development and safety, I realized that most of the lessons she taught me in the farm are actually very useful in everyday life. So what are the parenting lessons from the farmer? Let me state at this point that for every parent or teacher who wants to be successful, he or she must imbibe these lessons and implement them. Lesson number one, a farmer understands times and seasons. A farmer knows when to clear the ground, knows when to weed. A farmer knows what plants to plant on a particular soil, and he pays attention to every detail. He knows the time for manuring and everything. So he understands times and seasons. And in parenting and education, whoever misses a season has a problem. So we're going to see in the clearing season. The clearing season is the season before the birth of the child, when the parent has to pay attention to everything, the environment into which the child is going to come into. This includes the peace of the home. Many people think that life begins at infancy, but now life begins even before the child is born. That's why even under the Child Rights Act, the unborn child has the right to survival. We protect even as much as children, the unborn babies. So anybody who misses this period has a problem. Then we pass that period, we get to the planting season. The educator, the parents should understand the importance of planting the right seeds at the right time and paying attention, because when you miss a particular period, you have a problem. It's going to create a vacuum. Then the early childhood is a time that many parents make a lot of mistakes. For them, the child is still very young to interact with. The child will not understand. But that's not true, because like the plants in the farm, as you tend to them, they understand, they know what is going on, and they react to the love that you show. And this also goes to our educational sectors. Today, parents are busy, so we take children to care homes. And if, as someone who cares for an infant, this person thinks that the baby is just an infant, will not understand, then there is a problem. By the way, I haven't told you, there was supposed to be a slide. I'm supposed to make a presentation, but for some technical reasons, my slides will not be able to come now. So my email address is going to be dropped at the comment section, the chat session. So for everybody who is interested in having this lesson and every other tip on parenting, please do contact me after this and I will send you the slides, the presentation via your email. I'm sorry, that's a bit, trust me, with or without the slides, the PowerPoint, you are going to enjoy this drive. I tried my best, but for some very technical reasons, I'm glad we are here today, and that's just what's important. So by the time we finish doing that, we have the irrigation period, the middle childhood. We also have to pay attention to manuring, because when you talk about irrigation and manuring, it's the benefit of the dry soil, where the ground with affection help your child learn basic life skills. For the educator, for the parents, this is a time you have to show the child all sorts of love and carry this child, guide the child from the let's hear whatever you teach the child, be child-based. I'm happy for IIU, which has taken up, I've taken a lot of courses on IIU, and I realized that they are basing everything with the educator is the learner-based, as different from the past that was teacher-based. So, and this is also what we have to carry into both in parenting and also in all parts of education, all aspects of education. Then we get to the weeding point, because we're still talking about times and seasons. There is time to clear the ground, there is time to plant, then there's time to sow, and there's time for weeding. The preteen period is a time I see as the weeding period. It is a time when the hormones are beginning to kick, and any mistake at this point will ruin the life of the child. Therefore, connecting with the child at this point very well should be, and as always, whatever you're going to do with every child should be in the best interest of the child. Mind you, something being in the interest of the child does not always mean that it has to be what that child likes or wants, but it has to be something that the child needs and going to be the best interest of the child. For instance, I see some parents, I see some mothers in particular, you see a little child of about 3, 4 playing with something, a harmful object, and you ask the parent, why won't you take that from the child? And the parent will say, this child is going to cry if you take it from him or her. And at that point, this parent is not being responsible, because we are talking about the best interest of the child. The interest of the child here is about what will benefit the child. If we leave the child with a harmful object, this child is going to harm him or herself. I hope those of us from Facebook, I hope I'm making some sense. Are there comments from the Facebook end? I would like this class to be participatory. I want to see your comments. I want to be sure that I'm communicating. I want to be sure that I'm making some sense. I want to be sure that I'm making some sense, because it is about every one of us. We should all be interested in what happens to every child, because it is our world. What happens to a child today happens to all of us. We are all involved. That's why we should all be concerned about the development and safety of the child, which is what I try to capture in this lecture, this short lecture, parenting lessons from the farmer. Then we move on to harvesting, the teenage period. The teenage
Miss Joy. Little apologize. We have some problems with the network. Our resource speaker is from Nigeria, so we will wait. She will come back very soon, I hope. Great session. Very, very important topic, like living like a parent, and especially a parent from the farmer. Please be free and write the questions, and also we will put in the chat, as she said, email, so you can write and she will send you the lesson. You know, we can't have a presentation. It's the problem of the network. Yes, yes, Sermina, wonderful. I like this, what you so said. Holding a child soul in your palm is certainly a big privilege. Great session.
Okay.
You're back. Miss Joy, do you hear me? Hello? Please, a little patient. We lost her again. Okay, we will wait, please, a little patient. I hope she will come back soon. She's an amazing speaker and really a great session, a great topic, very important. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry about the disconnection. In my part of the world, it's tough, but the tough survive. And I'm one of the tough ones. So I will survive, and this discussion is going to be a success. I'm very positive. So we are talking about the teenage years in the life of a person. And I was saying that many parents, many educators have problems with teenagers. And that's because the early childhood, in many cases, we are not properly made use of. When parents and educators understand the early years and actually help the young ones develop positively, by the time they become teenagers, yes, they will show the signs of teenagehood, but it's not going to be as bad as when the land was not tilled, when the planted at the right time. You don't begin to raise children in adolescence. You raise them from day one. So that's the problem that many educators and parents are having. So it's time for you now at the teenage time to actually discuss and implement consequences, because you've already set up a lot of things, boundaries and other things from the beginning. So it's time for you to begin to have a chat one-on-one with this child. For educators, it's time to change your discipline pattern. You wouldn't discipline a child the way a teenager, the way you disciplined a 7-year-old. You are going to have this child rebel against you, and that's why a lot of persons are having problems. So we move forward, get to the storage period, because we're still talking about these times and seasons. The storage, of course, you keep your best seeds for the next farming season. And I believe at this point, whoever has done well with the child has a very good child that's going to grow into adulthood. So we move quickly to the lesson 2. Lesson 2 is from this farmer is know the right soil for each crop. A good farmer knows the right soil for the right crop. In making a choice, every farmer considers the season, considers the crop which he or she is going to plant in making a choice of the farmland, of the soil, of it. So you don't just take everything and plant anywhere. If I take cassava, for instance, and go to plant it very near the river, it might not function well, might not produce well. So a farmer is aware, for instance, that the cassava and the rice are two different crops and they need different kinds of soil to thrive. And this is what every parent and educator should know. A parent and educator should pay attention to the personality of every child. No two children are the same. A parent and educator should discover a child's interest and help groom that interest. If you handle a particular plant just the way you handle the other, because you are the same farmer, you're going to have problem. Possibly, in most cases, the one that is suited for that crop, that soil, will develop well, while the other one will not develop well. So an educator and the parent needs to understand what the interest of the child is, the personality, and help the child, help groom it. An educator of a parent should avoid comparison. This is the mistake many parents and educators make on a daily basis, daily, hourly, by minutes. We make comparisons. No two people are the same. You should also guide, not force. This is the soil now. The role of an educator, the role of a parent is to guide through example, through setting boundaries, through discussion, making a child understand what should be, not to force. When you force a child to take an action, that child actually imbibe the lessons, but is going to do it just for you. The child will do it, not because the child understands what has been taught, but is going to just maybe carry out the action. Let me give us an example. So many people have children who will not do certain things in the home, but when they
You are muted.
can we continue?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I wish I could see the Facebook comments. Are there any reactions? I really wanted us to interact. Okay. So when we force and not guide, you see children who will be very good children at home, but when they go out, they'll do exactly that same thing that they don't do in their parents' house. Why is it so? Or they don't do it in the school when the educator is there. What the mistake we make is we tell children, you should not do this in my class. You should not do it in my house. So the child obeys you. Not necessarily that this child has been able to understand why he or she should not do it, but because the child just obeyed you instead of imbibing that lesson. So when the child goes out, this child is going to do that same thing that he or she is not doing in the house. A typical example, I have a friend whose children should not dress in certain ways in the house. And this friend hasn't taken time to explain to the children why dressing in that form, which she thinks is bad, is actually bad. So the children don't dress that way. But the moment they leave the home, in fact, in school, they are different human beings. Out of the house, they're different human beings. You see a child buy certain clothes that the parents are not even aware that he or she has, and carries its clothes in the school bag. Once it steps out, he puts the dress on. Then you talk about, for here, university students. They live different lives in school, and the life they live in school is different from the one they live at home. That's because we try to force things on them. Then as an educator and parent, knowing the right soil, you need to convince the child, oh, that's exactly what I said. You need to convince the child if the reason for your choice is the best. For instance, a child wants to do a certain thing, like in career choice, we always say parents should guide, looking at the strength of the child. But if for any reason you see that what you want for the child is better than what the child wants, and you are truly, truly sure, not for your own selfish interest, as we see many parents do, then you need to sit the child down, educate the child, and convince this child that this is what is best for him or her. And this goes for both. Of course, I have already said that parents are the secondary, teachers, educators are the secondary parents. So I'm addressing all parents now, the primary and the secondary parents. So we quickly move to the next point is, for you as an educator, as a parent, knowing the right soil means you have to bury your pride. It shouldn't be about you all the time. It should be about the child. Being a responsible, a reasonable educator, a reasonable parent means that it is not about you. It is about the child that you're trying to guide, because that is your role. That's why you are called into a modeling a child's natural gifts. Many parents are guilty of this. Many parents think they know what is good for their children, and out of selfishness, you stifle, actually say you mother the natural gifts that a child has, which is going to be beneficial to the society and to the world in general. That's a typical example here. A child wants to go into arts, and the parents, like mostly have here in Nigeria, wants to be by a father or a mother to a doctor, and a child is first into going into study a course that he or she has no interest in. This child is going to possibly pass the exams, become a doctor, but not fulfilled. And the natural thing in him or her has been murdered, has been killed. No parent or educator should do this, because I have also come in contact with many educators who love the certain students so much because they're intelligent, that they have worked with their parents or on their own, work against the child's best interest. Lesson number three from the farmer is keep a growth enabling environment. I would like to tell us a short story to illustrate this. Not too long ago, I traveled to the village to see my mother. It was supposed to be a brief stop, but that trip stayed longer because a certain woman met me and started telling her stories of woes, how her children were not doing well, all the children's mates to other parents, the age mates were already doing well, and her own children are not doing well. They're supposed to have so she told stories about her children and how they were not taking care of her. By now they're supposed to have cars, they're supposed to buy her clothes and all sorts of things. But one thing was sure, growing up, this woman and her husband were always fighting. They're always cursing the children. In fact, they were not good examples. The children didn't have an enabling environment for growth. Giving birth to children is one thing. Clearing the ground is one thing. Sowing the seed is one thing. Manuring is one thing. But creating an enabling environment for growth is very important. And after she delayed me for more than about an hour, I was trying to tell her, remind her about our childhood. As a child, I grew up at the same time with her children, and what the things she did with her husband, her relationship with him, and the fight and everything, how those things have affected her children now, because the children are suffering from a lot of things, low self-esteem, all the things that come from children experiencing violence between their parents. So creating an enabling environment for growth is I said here, besides clearing and filling, which takes place before the planting and the manuring, a parent and educator should ensure that a home is devoid of violence. Domestic violence kills children. It suffocates their development. So also is in the education sector, when an educator is very violent, either in words or in his action, it suffocates something in that child. I had a problem as a young child understanding mathematics in my primary school, just because the teacher who was taking us mathematics then was a very violent man. The only thing he understood was hitting the children. So rather than follow his instructions, try to understand what he was doing, we are all scared. So we all ended up failing mathematics in primary school, until I'll tell the story later. Then my aunt took over and started guiding me from the house. So it is important to ensure that domestic violence does not exist, because domestic violence is a creeper. Creeping plant that suffocates other things. It suffocates the development. An enabling environment should be absence of, when the environment is not enabling, it suffocates the values. So absence of moral values pollutes the environment, and absence of moral values now is about the adults who are supposed to be examples. Cursing children serves as manure to the weeds, not to the children. you know, you have weeds, you plant your, you make your farm, you plant the seeds. As the plants are growing, weeds will automatically come out, which we're supposed to take away from the farm for the crops to perform very optimally. But then when you curse your child, when you say unkind words to your child often, those words will become like manure to the weeds. So by the time you're adding manure to the plants, you're also adding manure to the weeds. So at the end of the day, the environment is not enabling for growth, and the child will end up not actually developing very well. Gossip, I said, is like a termite. It eats up the tubers under the soil. A child is just growing, a child is developing, and right before this child, certain adults, led by his or her own parents, engage in gossip. Sometimes some parents involve children in their discussion about another adult. This, I say, is like a termite which goes under the soil and eats up the tuber. So at the end of the day, the child is growing and there is nothing inside this child. We just have a head and a shoulder. I hope I am making sense. I hope I'm communicating. Okay. Like I said, I'm sorry I'm not making use of my phone, laptop, my computer, so I can't even access the Facebook comments. I really would have loved to. So lesson number 4 from the farmer is manure is necessary for growth. I've just like mentioned it in the past point. Every successful farmer knows that you can't have good harvests without adding manure to the soil, especially these days when the soils are all depleted. A good farmer does not just consider his job done because he has planted the seeds, but no, he adds manure to the soil. This manure is about the love that you give. This manure is about the support that you give to the child. The manure here for a child is about understanding the child. It's about following up with the child. I love stories so much. So I would like to quickly tell us another story here. There was this story that was about a particular child. I coach teenagers too, who was being kind of caused by his mates to join a particular group, which was not good. And you know how it's like this pressure, peer pressure in secondary schools. And these children have already formed a cult group. But a particular child, based on what the little, he is a good child, I would say, not based on the manual, was unwilling to join this group. But the other group has cut him off. He couldn't perform, he couldn't in any activities. And on this particular day, there was a football match going on. He was not allowed to step into the football pitch. He wanted to play with his mates. Meanwhile, all this while, he's been trying to talk with the parent, talk with the mother, talk with the father, but they've been very busy. The educators, their own school is just to make sure they teach and find out that the children are in the field playing. They wouldn't know what has made a particular child not to participate. There's not this one-on-one relationship either with the parents or with a particular educator. So the child felt out of place. The mother is so busy, the father is so busy. So on this particular day, he asked himself, because he came to my office and we were talking, and he told me he wasn't happy with what he was doing, but now told the story of how he joined. So on this particular day, he felt, what do I even have to lose? I'm already losing everything by not being part of them. And I don't have my parents' support. I don't have love. So he just pulled his shirt, dropped it, jumped into the pitch and told all of them, oh, I'm ready to join. And what happened? All the boys were happy. They had a new convert. The boy has joined their cult, so he could not play. So what happened? The parents had sowed the seed. They were watering, but they were not giving manure. Love and training does not stop at early childhood. That manual should be there, that support, that relationship, being able to talk with a child. And as an educator, there is a big challenge, really. I don't know how many people achieve it, but some try. Some educators try to understand the personality of every child. That's why I am one of those who keep advocating that a classroom shouldn't be made up of so many children. The less the number of children, the easier it will be for the educator to understand the child, understand his or her mood, understand when the child is showing something different, and can now discuss with the child. For parents, it is a must to try to understand their child. It is an error that whenever any child wants to talk to you, you are busy. The child should wait till tomorrow. That thing that's waiting till tomorrow might consume that child. Like in this case, the boy joined the cult group just to be able to play with other children. Today, everybody blames him. We blame children for belonging to certain things. Why do they belong to those groups? In most times, the children just want love. They just want support. They just want company, which they don't get at home. So as a good farmer, it does not stop in adding all those things. You have to add manure and routinely visit the farm. Yeah, you have to routinely visit the farm. This is your child now. Call the child and ask, what's going on? How is it? In parenting, the provision of food is not enough. In educating, teaching in the classroom isn't enough. You need to build a relationship with your students. Sending a child, for parents, sending a child to the most expensive school isn't enough. You've not done enough. In most times, the more expensive the school is, the more damage is caused in the life of the child. At least here in Nigeria, I can speak. Living in a very secured house does not guarantee the safety of your child. This is, for many parents, many primary parents, this is a mistake they make. And even for some secondary parents, the educators, you think that your school is very secured. So you actually assume that all you have to do is about that classroom. By the time you are done, yeah, the child is secured there, as secured as you think he is. But talk about life after school. Your life as an educator, your role should involve what the child does, educating the child in a way that will empower him to be a better person out there. Parents, your house is secure doesn't mean your child is safe. Let's talk about child molestation, sexual abuse now. It has been proven that more than 60% of child molestation takes place in the home of the victim, which is that's your very secured environment. And by the way, by the same people that you trust, relatives and friends who come or live with you. You should also know that providing a child with the trending electronic gadgets isn't enough. That's not enough love. Most times, being unguarded, these electronics expose them to more danger. And basically, for my African brothers and sisters, praying for the child is not enough security. You pray, yes, but you have to watch while you pray. You have to teach the child what has to be taught. You have to have a relationship with your child. Don't push back to the Almighty Father a task for which He has given you the skills as a parent, as an educator to handle. To succeed, you should add manure and constantly check on the crop. You should check on your child and know how the child is developing. Lesson number 5. I actually feel as if I'm just alone here. I wish I could get some chats. I wish I should know what's going on. I wish I could know what's going on. I wish I could be sure that I'm making sense. Yeah. Am I making sense to you? We are all farmers in our individual fields of activities. Okay. I guess I'm going to read those later. And like I said, you get to drop your email. Father, please remember to drop my email in the chat box for those who want to get this presentation and other parenting tips. Parenting lesson number 5 from the farmer says, supply the right quantity of water. I'm sure many of us have read the story I want to tell now. I say that I'm a storyteller. Because I work with children, I work with parents, young children, I always I love using stories to illustrate whatever points I make. We all must have read this story about three farmers, three neighbors who have palm flower gardens around their homes. Their houses, the farms were so close that every one can see the other while walking in his farm every day, watering the farm. So starting at some point during the dry season, one of the three stopped coming, and his flower garden the flowers began to wither. The other two persisted, they continued consistency. Every morning they'll come out and water the plants. Then on a certain day, the heavens chose to bless the earth, and there was this heavy rain. The wind it was this heavy storm. So the next morning, the two farmers came out to check their farms. One of them, the plants were all lying, they've all been pulled, and the other, and he went over the water with the damaged plant. Farm went over to the other one and asked, I come out with like you every morning to water my plants. Now just one storm, and all my plants have been pulled out, and nothing is left for me. What did I do wrong? The second one said, every day I come out, I give my plants just the right quantity of water they need to survive. So the roots need to go down by themselves to seek for more water. But in your case, you were giving them all the water they needed. So there was no need for the plants to struggle. So the roots were basically almost at the surface. When the storm came, they could not withstand the storm. Do I need to explain this in parenting and education? It is very, very clear. It is very, very clear. It is good to love a child, but loving a child does not mean you have to do everything for the child. Absence of love and care causes a child to wither within and without, just like the first farmer, the third one who backed off during the dry season. So he just withered. The plants just withered. He lost his farm. He lost his money. Then overindulgence is not love. When you overindulge a child, you make the child weak and vulnerable to external influences. Just like in the farm, the flower garden of the third person, he made his plants very vulnerable to external influences. The storm came and it just went off. They all pulled because they could not stand. The stems have not gone right under the soil. So when we overindulge children, when we don't allow children to do certain things and then what they need to do, they'll just, like I like saying, they'll just be heads and shoulders waiting for environmental and peer pressure to come and pull them off. You need to create an opportunity for a child to learn basic and survival skills. This is both for the primary and secondary educators, secondary parents. A child should not just learn how to read and write. Child should learn both survival skills. And once again, I say kudos to IIU for all the lessons, all the lectures you've been teaching. I realize that on this education platform, it is not just about certificates. It is about life. It is about living. And this is why I would always recommend the International Internship University for everyone across the globe, because you are indeed the change. There are duties of parents and there are also duties of children. There are duties of educators and there are also duties of young students. Don't do what a child should do for him. Let the child carry out his or her own activities while you do your own. Balance love with discipline. Discipline is very, very necessary in life of every young person. But then again, to my African brothers and sisters, I must tell us that discipline is not synonymous with punishment. Discipline does not amount hitting the child. Discipline amounts to correcting the child. And even if you are actually going to punish the child, let it look at what has happened. Ensure that the child understands the reason for which he or she is being punished and point out the correction. If you end up punishing a child and you don't bring back the child to explain why what he or she did was wrong, you've just wasted your energy. A typical example is when you hit a little child or scream at him, call the child back in 3 minutes and ask, do you know why I hit you? The child is going to say no. So you have a responsibility to explain, oh, this was what you did. And because I want the best for you, and by the way, I don't love screaming at you. I want the best for you. I want you to be a good child. So when we create this balance, we are going to have better children, better students, and the world will become a better place. Let every parent and educator, let every parenting and educating decision and action be guided by the best interest of the child. I've said this, I think, more than 4 times today. And that's because as a child protection practitioner, I know that the first line in the child rights law is best interest of the child. Whatever decision and action to be taken that affects a child must be in the best interest of the child. So we move quickly to lesson number 6. We are gradually winding down, and it says every crop is unique. That is the next lesson for us. Every crop. There are actually many lessons from the farmer, but we don't have all the time, all the day to expand on all of them. A book on it is coming out very soon. And for those who are interested, it's going to be there because people have been requesting for. First is a topic they don't understand, why relate parenting. So I'm going to, this is our last topic for today. Every crop is different. No 2 people are the same. I have always told stories about me and my grandmother, right? Yeah, I was raised by my grandmom. My mother was quite young when she had me, so I was raised by my grandmother. I'm so grateful for that. And I bless her soul wherever she is today. She died many years ago. Taking me to the farm, one of the experiences I always remember going to the farm with grandma was this particular lesson. Every crop is unique and important. While we visited the farm, I was always very impatient with crops that, to me, as a child, talking about a child now, I was less than 10. As a child, I was impatient with crops that were not growing fast. So on this particular day, I never knew that plants were different, their natures were different, and they grew at different times. So on this particular, it was so bad that at the point I'll be pulling out certain plants that I think were just time wasters. Then on this particular day after the farming season, we're about to leave, I called grandma. Grandma, I hate this, I record the word, I hate this plant. I want to pull it. It is developing very slowly. I don't like it. Look at the other ones. I now planted at the cassavas. That one is very tall, it's growing and long, the stems were long and it's growing well, and I was happy I can sit under the shade when the sun comes out. My grandma said, now sit down, let me teach you a lesson. She said, the cassava you pointed at is different from this. This is the cocoyam plant. It cannot be. It's not the same species, it's not the same plant as the cassava, and it cannot grow as tall as long as the cassava stem. This cocoyam is going to grow at its own pace, probably mature before the cassava. And you know what? She told me, you know what? Both of them, if we give them love, both of them are going to give us tubers to feed with. So bend down, my girl, add soil to the cocoyam. I bent my face in shame for trying to make that comparison. But she said, no, you don't. Don't be ashamed. That is how life is. Now you have learned this lesson. So growing up, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen I've taken it also to human beings, to children, in my interaction with children. No two children are the same. Every child is unique and important. They grow at their pace, individual paces. By the way, our cocoyam matured and gave us tubers. The cassava matured and gave us tubers. And we were happy and we fed with them. We fed on them. And grandmother didn't fail to remind me, now this is a cocoyam. When we got the cassava, he said, this is the cassava. Next time when you go to the farm. So at that point, I was able to now differentiate the different types of plants and their lifespans. So for children, this is what every parent and educator need to understand. That one, no two children on earth are the same. No two individuals are the same. Every child has his individual, unique physical and emotional features. If you understand this, educating children will be quite easier for you. I know it's stressful sometimes. It can be very stressful for educators. Yes, it is. For parents, yes, it is. It is very easy for us to make comparisons. If you understand that no two human beings, including you, your own siblings, no two human beings on the surface of the earth are the same. Everyone has his unique physical and emotional features. Then you should understand that the uniqueness, you need to study, really. This is a task for parents and educators to understand the uniqueness, the temperament, the strength, and the weaknesses of every child that comes in contact with you. What does it tell us? We all need to take a study on temperament. There are things that work for one child that will not work for another. I have a younger sister. As I am here, I hate being shouted at. Talk to me calmly, and I will take an assignment that I ordinarily will not take, just because of the tone you use. But I have a younger sister. Talk from now till next year. If you don't shout, she's not going to move from where she's seated. Honestly, before I took my sojourn into temperament and personality studies, I used to wonder, are you sure she is my sister? Why do I have to shout as if I'm shouting at a mad person? But then when I started reading, I understood that she's just different. Because shout at me, expect some level of damages, even if you force me to carry out that act. So this is what we need to understand with the children that we deal with in our classes. I am not saying you should not help to inculcate discipline in children. I am not saying that we should not allow children to behave just the way they want. But I am saying that even in giving out these individual tasks, don't expect every child to carry it out in the same way at the same time, because they are different and their level of understanding is different. Their emotions are different. Then we also need to stand on the strong side of every child and now strengthen his weaknesses. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. As adults, we are striving to survive. As children, you need to stand on the strong side of that child to strengthen his or her weaknesses. That means the child has to actually be your partner in this task. You have to bring the child on to be able to understand, look at what is going on. We can do this, we can be better, and see how this is going to happen. In all of this, the child should be your friend. Without friendship, you're not going to miss it. And don't forget, the cocoyam will always be different from the cassava. Nothing you do on this earth will make the cocoyam become cassava or make a cassava to become cocoyam. The cassavas can always, at the end of the day, during maturity, you can only get cassava tubers. You cannot get cocoyam from it. So also, when you know not to harvest cocoyam from cassava, the other way, either way, every personality is unique. We have to stop forcing people to be what they are not, but strengthening them to become the better part of themselves. That way, you'll be surprised at what the earth will become, because we are going to have human beings who are confident of themselves, who grew up with strong self-esteem, not a weak one because they are being compared with other people every day. And that takes us to the last point under this. No preferences, show equal love. A few days ago, I made a Facebook reel. I said, the worst crime you can commit against yourself as a parent is showing more love, loving one child more than the other. No preferences. Love children equally. Stand on their strengths and understand their personalities. Do what works for each child. For educators, this is quite difficult, but it is achievable. It is achievable. And educators, again, I have to say, because there's something that happens in the classroom, many of us are guilty of it in our small places. In the classroom, because we have a lot of children to handle, we always tend to, rather than focus on the weak ones, we focus on the strong ones. We focus on the intelligent ones. So when you give assignments, you prefer those children who are smarter, who are fast, who will submit, who will complete their tasks early. So they are the ones you also call in class too. For classwork, they're the ones you always make reference with. Unknown to you, by ignoring the weak ones, the one not too intelligent ones, as we claim, we are helping to kill them. Now, let's note. That child who is not very academically intelligent, as we assume, is good, very, very good in something else. We have a responsibility to strengthen the little he or she knows academically and find out his or her area of strength and help the child do just that. I don't know how many of you have interacted with children who are physically challenged or who have some kind of psychological challenge. You find out that they are just very good in a lot of other things. I had a session for children with vision impaired children the other time, and their singing was wonderful. I visited them. I had their voices were wonderful. So we have to begin to identify the skills in every child and do what we should do to help those children. It is only then that we call ourselves educators. In conclusion, we are all farmers in our respective field of endeavors, and we have to strive and manure. As farmers in our respective field of activities, nature remains the most reliable university where we should learn from. And that is where this lesson from the farmer has come from. To become truly successful in your activities with children and young persons, every parent and educator should endeavor to imbibe the lessons from the farmer and then implement them. Don't ever forget. No two children are the same, and every child is unique and important. On this note, I'll end this presentation. I hope I did make some sense. Thank you very much, IIU, for this opportunity to share my lessons from the farm to this global audience. And don't forget, like I said, to send me an email so I can send this presentation to you and other parenting tips if you're interested. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm grateful.